So as I mentioned before, this thought of Buddha nature being that all of the mental afflictions and so forth are not intrinsically part of the mind, and therefore they can be removed, and also our positive qualities of mind can be developed. That's what we call Buddha nature. In other words, we all have the potential to become fully enlightened beings. And the point is that all of the afflictions can be removed because all of them are rooted in fundamental mistaken views of viewing reality. Okay? And here when we talk about the antidotes for dealing with difficult, disturbing emotions, there's two things. There's two situations, right? There is one in the actual moment when the afflictive emotion has arisen, what do we do? And then the other one is, when we're not in the throes of anger or jealousy or something, how do we then train our minds so that we can, have those kinds of emotions arise less frequently and less powerfully, right? So, the first, when we are experiencing that difficult emotion, the main strategy that we can use that will be effective is just the same one we were talking about in terms of our mindfulness practice. That we notice that the affliction has arisen, but we don't engage with it, we don't follow it, we don't add fuel to the fire. Now, this is important because if we somehow, not let that emotion manifest fully, then we're getting into suppressing it, right? And then sooner or later, we're gonna blow our top, so to speak, right? So the strategy here is it's already there in the mind. So experience it. Experience what it's like to be angry or to have attachment, okay? But the trick is, in that very situation that we're provoked or whatever, we then don't allow that disturbing emotion to impel us to engage in actions of body or speech, okay? So at that time, we have to use the mindfulness inwardly and see, I'm now angry, and so just be careful that we don't do something that will come to later regret. Should I read this now? Now, or just in the session? Okay. Oh yeah. So we let it manifest, but then we just observe it impartially and see that here again, just as when we have the desire for chocolate and we don't eat a chocolate, then that desire goes away. In a similar way, when we have a mind of anger, we'll have a desire to retaliate, right? And the point is, we don't have to engage in that, and eventually that will go away by itself without having to create a negative action, okay? But that's what we do in the moment, but we also undertake a kind of thinking about our reality in a different way, analyzing, and then this can help to develop a different way of reacting altogether. And sometimes, let's say for anger, we might hold on to things for a long time, and then coming to think about it in a different way can help to let go of the resentment we have for ourselves or others. Okay? So what I thought to do is go through some of the top afflictive emotions, and then we can talk about how they function, what they are, and then talk about some antidotes. Okay? So, let's see. We have anger, attachment, anxiety, jealousy, guilt, shame, criticism, and resentment.
Can I add one?
Yeah.
It's separate. Hurt.
Hurt.
Different.
Mm-hmm. What is hurting you?
Oh, I mean, I was talking in general.
Someone has harmed you? Or are you talking about after a long run?
Yeah, no. Emotional.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, okay. Then, let's see. You guys comfortable sharing something about yourself? Then which of these do you think is the strongest one in your lives? Okay? So, and then we can maybe start with that.
Anxiety.
Okay, so hold on, I'll say. And then you raise your hand. Okay, it'll be easier that way. So first, anger. And you say, okay. Ale. Okay, attachment or lust. Oh yeah, okay. Anxiety. All right. Some of you raising your hands twice. It's okay. Jealousy. Shanti. Then what? We have kind of, I think self-criticism, guilt, shame is kind of in the same town. Yeah, how about that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right. Resentment. It's not your top, but okay, yeah. And then emotional hurt. Okay.
Not all hurt.
Yeah, all right. So I think anger wins. For now, we're going to develop the tools that we can defeat anger, okay? And actually, I have the most to say about anger, so it's good. Because anger was my difficult one. And actually, once we come to understand how one of the afflictions work, they kind of all work in a very similar way. And when we get, there's a saying that you should start your practice by working on your strongest affliction, right? And then you get to know the strategies and how to deal with it, and then you can apply some of those same learnings to other mental afflictions. Okay? So, actually, when I was here last time, I spoke about anger in quite some detail, huh?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Really? And you still want more?
Yes.
I have no new strategies, but anyway, I'm joking. Okay, so with any affliction, then oftentimes, we always have to first meditate on the disadvantages of it, okay? And so here, with anger, actually first we need to define it. We first need to identify it. Because, sometimes, again, as I mentioned before, in normal kind of on the street parlance, or the way we talk about anger, it can mean one thing. But when we're talking in the specific Buddhist philosophical context, then anger means something else. Okay? So here, anger is defined as a mind that views an object and exaggerates its negative qualities and then wishes to, harm, destroy, do something bad to that object. Okay? So the first thing to notice is, although some people have this kind of doubt where there might be a situation where there's grave social injustice, and protesting some government action or protesting the war or something like this, and then a doubt comes up whether, what should we do, right? So it's kind of this thought that there are situations where our anger is justified, and not only that, but we should express our anger. And if we don't do that, then somehow we are, letting injustice happen. Okay? But here, since this anger is involving a wish to harm, yeah, and it's also involving an exaggeration of qualities, it is said in the traditional text that anger is always an afflictive emotion. It's always negative. Okay? Now, in more contemporary times, the Dalai Lama himself has made this made a distinction with a kind of outrage about social issues, for example, and he distinguishes that with anger. But in normal parlance, if we talk about that kind of anger, that is not that's not necessarily negative. And in fact, we should be working for the betterment of our social institutions. Sometimes we will be justified in protesting and trying to work for better laws in the society and so forth. But the difference is, as you saw, some years ago, there's the rioting in Ferguson in the U.S. There's police officers who, killed a African American, and in reaction to that, there was a lot of protests that turned into rioting. Yes. So the point is here, we might still be protesting. We might still be, on the front lines of that, and even yelling, right? But as the Beatles song goes, right? You say you want a revolution, well, we all want to change the world. You say you want a revolution, well, we all want to change the world. But when you talk about destruction, don't you know that you can count me out? Okay? So the motivation is entirely different from one of the pure anger, wishing to harm. Here, you can be there and yelling and, even have an angry, visage, but in the mind, the motivation is that of compassion. Compassion for, the would-be victims of this social injustice, compassion for, even the perpetrators of the crimes, right? Wishing that they aren't motivated by afflictive emotions themselves. Okay? So that's one thing. Now, when we talk about anger, then there is the antidote to anger, which has been translated as patience, but here again, it's a little bit not a great translation. The word actually in Tibetan is sepa, right? So Z, O with an umlaut on it, the two dots, P-A. So actually it's Lama Zopa Rinpoche. A lot of people say Lama Zopa, but it's more Zopa, okay? And that Tibetan word zupa, which is translated as patience, actually has a connotation of not only patience, like, you wait for the bus or something, and it's like, okay, I'm patient. But it also has a connotation of forbearance, being able to experience suffering or uncomfortable situation without our mind getting disturbed. And so here, the definition of zupa, right, is when we encounter difficulties to, a mind unperturbed. It means that our mind is, stable, and it's not overly affected by our external environment or internal mental disturbance, right? And then, it remains peaceful in the face of these adverse conditions. Okay? So this thought is the antidote for anger. And, well, we begin to cultivate our practice of patience, so that we first do it in the comfort of our meditation cushion at home, so that later when we go out into the real world, then we can experience a heightened sense of zupa. And then when we have kind of provocative situations, we can maintain our mental peace and not get angry. Okay? So the first thing in our cultivation of patience is to think of the faults and drawbacks of getting angry. And here again, you can relate it to your own life and think of the times you got angry, what then you did, and how much negative consequences that incurred. Okay? Have we all gotten angry? Have we all, when we got angry, then did something we came to, harm ourselves and others? And then have we come to later regret that? Okay. So, in hindsight, it is very, very easy to see the faults of anger. But in the moment, it doesn't appear that way. It appears that we need to somehow, retaliate and harm this other person back. And it appears to us at that time that is going to, teach the other person a lesson whereby they're not going to harm us again in the future. Do we think that? So, how I mentioned in the very definition of anger, our anger is viewing an object and exaggerating its negative qualities, right? So we think that somehow when we are harmed, that the harm is coming from out there, from what the other person is doing, and that we're completely innocent and we're like an innocent victim. And therefore we're outraged, and then one thing leads to another. So the first thing we should do when we're thinking about our anger is noticing how it arises and how all of these different kinds of causes and conditions need to manifest for the anger to arise, and actually for us to even be harmed in the first place. Now, it is a good practice, just as we start our meditation with 3 or 4 minutes, start with something small and then get to something bigger, right? With our anger, then usually we get angry when we are harmed right? So it is good, it's easier to start with smaller examples of us being harmed, and then learn how to become patient with those, and then go on to bigger things, okay? There's going to be some duplication here for the guys who came last time when I was here. But anyway, that's just the three of you maybe. So let's take an example of what don't we like? We don't like to be criticized, right? We don't like to be insulted. And normally our normal reaction is to respond to criticism with criticism. All right. So first, we explore how that actually is harming us, how criticism is harming us, right? And when we look into it, our normal conception is that somehow those words are coming from outside, and then just like an arrow or a bullet would then harm us, those words are like that. Those words in and of themselves are harming us, okay? So I had a few steps to think about, okay? Remember, our first thing is to see the normal, how anger works, seeing how that views the object as being 100% bad, and that the harm is coming from 100% outside. So our strategy is to see how our own mind is in some way creating the harm, okay? And so it's not just 100% from the other side, okay? All right. So, I told this example, sorry, you've heard it before, but when I was in Italy, okay? I was in Italy my senior year of university, and I was at this, in Milano, at a town square called the Duomo. And anyway, there's a place, it's a big square, and there's pigeons. And then there are these people who will come and put kernels of corn on your arms, you know, like this. And then the pigeons will come and land on you, and then you take a snap, and then it's like really cool, you have all these pigeons on you. Just forget about the disease and so forth. But anyway, you know, I was 22. So I do this. And then, you know, there's these men there who help you with this, take the snap. Then after, they ask for money. Charu, please sit. What's that?
I'm just seeing 1 hour. I had somewhere to be
Are they?
at work. So I just
Okay.
I'll be back in 1 hour for sure.
Okay. Thanks for stopping by. Okay, so go do your thing. Okay. So, alright. So I'm there with my friend, and this happens, and then the guy is asking for money. And so, you know, in Europe, coins are worth a lot of money. But I gave him some coins, you know. He gave me a few kernels of corn, come on. So I'm like, that's quite okay, you know, like whatever, a few euros, 3 euros or something. And he got super mad. He was yelling at me, shouting at me, he was getting very close. But the thing is, he was doing that all in Italian. So I didn't understand one word of what he was saying. And so I found it very comical, actually, that he was yelling and it wasn't having any of the effect that he wanted to have on me, right? And so I start laughing, which makes the situation even worse. And it's like just escalating like this. And then finally, my friend just gives him some more money, and then he goes away. But the point is, just on this very simple level, right, we're trying to loosen this idea that those words in and of themselves are harmful. And it's not the case. At the very least, we have to understand what those words mean. Okay? Now, second step, for us to get angry, we need to understand what the words mean, but also, let's just say, you, sir, can I use you as an example?
Sure.
Alright, what's your name?
Gaurang.
Gaurav.
Gaurang.
Gaurav, with a V at the end.
NG at the end.
Oh, Gaurav.
Gaurang.
Okay, great, nice to meet you.
Nice.
So, Gaurav, what don't you like to be called? What do you find very insulting?
A lot of insulting words.
Yeah, like what?
An asshole.
Whoa! Okay. Alright. So, can I say that on camera?
I just realized that too.
No, it's okay. So let's just say I go and call him, you a-hole! Right? Alright. So all of you in the room would hear that, right? Yeah, all of you would hear that. But maximum, maybe only you, if you're not trained in your mind, only you would get angry about it, right? Or maybe, I don't know, is your sister here or wife? Maybe one of them would get offended. But, you see, so it's not just hearing the words and understanding them, but also we need to then think that we are the somehow object that those words are referring to. So you get my point, right? It's not merely about understanding the words, but it's also that those words have to, we think that they're applying to us. We identify with those words, right? So in this sense, it is like Shantideva explains in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. It's like we set up a target for other people to harm us, okay? Now, third point. We have to also care about what is being said to us. So my favorite illustration of this is when did you see a few years ago, actually now it's many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, there was a fight in the Korean parliament. And it went viral anyway. But what had happened was one of the parliamentarians said to another one that your mustache is thin. Okay? Now, in Korean culture, this is a very big insult. And I think it is in some places in India too, right? I heard this, I'm not sure, but you tell me. I heard actually in Rajasthan, like before you do this kind of thing, and it'd be like challenging someone to a duel. You know, if you did this, look at someone the wrong way. Anyway. So, okay, we can laugh about it, but for some people, there's a very strong identification. It's like, he's insulted my mustache, and there's some association with that being, like less than manly, or like, and then it's grounds for them fighting, right? But this also is conditional. Myself, right? I have a thin mustache, and if you tell me that, I promise I won't punch you, right? I won't even get angry, right? So the point is, whatever it is about us that we have a very strong identification for us to be, intelligent. As much attachment as we have to our self-image of us being intelligent, then when we're called stupid, that's how much we get angry, right? If we're not trained. So Here, the strategy then is to just see how we could, if our mind was a certain way, right, then whatever people say to us is just like people insulting us in Italian.